First, the next person that we would like to invite to give her viewpoints is Dr. Yasmin Qazi. She's a medical doctor and leading public health professional with over 30 years experience in reproductive health, women's empowerment, social development. She is a senior country advisor to the PECOUT Foundation. She earned multiple honors, including Sindh Government Social Development Award and Prime Minister's Performance Award. And she has also been recognized by the British Council's Women of the World Initiative and the Punjab government's among the top women leaders in youth. She is also the only Pakistani member of the Belinda Gates Foundation's Global Evaluation Panel, and currently she's CEO of QZ Catalyst. So Yasmin Saiba, we know that the relationship between water, health, population is very less explored. So we have a lot of questions from you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Yasmin Qazi. Welcome. Thank you for being here. We just wanted to benefit from your vast experience regarding the immediate and long-term effect on health, specifically of droughts, as well as excessive water impact through, flooding. And what is the status of the, inappropriate water supply and sanitation system? And then, of course, the villains have been identified, but would you like to identify some new villains or additional villains, excluding the commission, of course, for countering this adverse health impact on children and youth in particular? Thank you.
Thank you, Simi, and thank you, Javed Saab, Mushahid Saab. So the Honorable Commission, I would like to give you all the respect for taking on to what we are going to say. I just want to set the context first. So thanks to our youth leader, you have done the great job, and the other who gave their testimonials. But I was just thinking about it, being in this field for so many 25 years, and coping with all the emergencies that has occurred and how health, and especially the women's health. So my focus will be very much acutely focused on women's and the girls' health. So I would say that when flood water rise, so does the human suffering. And not just from loss of homes and crops, but from the silent emergencies that follow, which are contaminated water, outbreak of diseases, and the collapse of reproductive and maternal health services. So just for quoting some example, all the statistics have been given very well in the opening ceremony, that over 33 million people were affected by the 2022 floods. But behind every number is a woman who lost access to care, a child exposed to contaminated water, and a community struggling to recover. And the other is that water and health are inseparable. Unsafe water remains one of Pakistan's largest public health matters. But I'm a public health expert, and we know that so thanks to Simi and the team, neither in the water and environment, the health is juxtapositioned or created that nexus, or neither us as a public health professional, we make that clear links to the water and how it contributes to the emergency that we are facing. Yes, health is an emergency in Pakistan, as is water, and maternal health is even more acute an emergency. What is the nexus? So when we talk about water, we must remember it's both life and, if neglected, the cause of death. It's very simplistic to say, but there's a whole cycle that goes around it. And if we are going to unpack what happens between this and that, then we know the solutions that how to counter that. But have we done that? The literature has not addressed it. The academics need to focus that connection much better. It's not a doctor's position, doctor's literature only, or medicine literature. It has to be interlinked. So flood water contaminated wells and hand pumps, increasing, of course, these are very simple statistics, diarrheal diseases, cholera, malaria, and dengue, we know that. And this is something, a very huge threat, as has been said, that we have more than 45% of stunted children in Pakistan. We know the kind of health profile that many of the communities have, so they are most vulnerable. And the health system are not prepared for the dual crisis, which is both water and disease simultaneously. So investment in safe water and sanitation infrastructure are critical to health as hospitals and medicines are. And this has to be written as a rule to follow, SOPs to be followed. So what is the hidden health crisis, as I've said before, is women and girls. So in every disaster, women and girls bear a disproportionate burden, but their needs are the first to be overlooked and pushed aside. We have seen that in the COVID. The family planning services were completely shut down. They said this is not something life-saving. We know women who went through unwanted pregnancy, unsafe abortion, and it is life-threatening. So excuse me, sir, it is life-threatening. If you say that it's not, then you are just hiding the evidence, brushing it away. So thousands of pregnant women in flood-hit areas lacked skilled birth attendants or clean delivery spaces. Reproductive health, menstrual hygiene, and access to contraception often disappear from emergency planning. Because of course it's about saving lives, but saving life is not only a very straightforward phenomena, so you have to consider that. And these are not luxury services, they are life-saving. So that needs to be considered. The other thing that we often do not talk about is the mental health and dignity when these crises happen, both water and health emergencies. So we talk about rebuilding homes and roads, but who rebuild the mind and the dignity of those who are displaced? In the previous part, we saw that the incidence of sexual violence, domestic abuse rise disproportionately when there is a displaced community. Nobody talks about that. And I think back in 2008 and the last flood that happened a decade ago, we created that safe spaces for women because it was necessary. We had so many cases. So post-flood trauma, anxiety, and stress-related disorder were widespread, we found out, and health, including the mental health and psychosocial support in disaster response is so mandatory. Yeah, I know I can go on, it's so passionate for me, but I'll do that, don't worry, Sana. So, and we also saw a disaster, facing a disaster. I just spoke in Dawn News Channel, and I said that we heard fathers saying when the water will go down, we'll get a 13-year-old or a 12-year-old girl married off, because they feel, oh, the school is washed away. If she's lucky enough to go to school, even if she's not washed away, this is the best strategy. So we are not even documenting that because it's not a science, it's not something. So from how do we come with the resilient health system? We have been talking about resilient health system. We know that floods will happen in Pakistan. We know we are a disaster-prone country, but our health system are not resilient enough. We are not proactive. We are just act after it happens, and it's not going to sustain. So we need proactive policies, and we need proactive programs. And then how do we integrate climate adaptation, primary healthcare, and community-led preparedness? The community-owned, they find the best solutions. And the women and girls are the first responders in the community. So how do we invest in that? So water governance and health system must plan, not in silos. I'm just saying call to action, Sana. So honorable commissioners, we cannot wait for the next flood to test our resolve again. We need health-centered water policies and water-conscious health system. So please take a note of that. And every flood reconstruction plan have a health and gender impact assessment built in. And we must invest in community health workers and local women. I've already said that. And just a closing line, the next generation will judge us not by how many shelters we'll build, but by whether we restore their right to health, dignity, and clean water. These are not separate issues, they are one and the same. Thank you.